Welcome to Coffee and Change. I'm Bill Kirst. As a business professional, a U.S. veteran, a lifelong learner, and an active listener, I help others navigate, understand, and adapt to our ever-changing workplace and world. As a third culture kid, I call many places home. Presently, Seattle is where I explore my creativity through the power of words and images. In this podcast, we journey with our guests, gaining knowledge and inspiration from their stories. Welcome back to Coffee and Change. Today's guest knows what it means to lead when the stakes are high. Nate Amidon spent 15 years guiding people and programs across the U.S. Air Force in Microsoft, Boeing, and Alaska Airlines. He's an Air Force C-17 pilot with more than 3,200 flight hours, including 800 in combat and over 1,500 as an instructor teacher to young pilots, teaching them how to fly, make decisions under pressure, and lead crews on global missions. When Nate transitioned from active duty, he brought the same discipline into technology and consulting. As a project manager, Scrum Master, and Scaled Agile Framework coach, he supported enterprise software programs across the Puget Sound region. He went on to found Form100 Consulting, where he helps clients apply military-tested leadership practices to build strong, high-performing teams that endure. In our conversation, Nate and I talked about how hard that transition actually is and was. Even with a degree from the Air Force Academy and an MBA, landing his first role at Microsoft wasn't simple, and it showed him how untapped veteran talent pools really are overlooked. That frustration was the spark for Form100, where he now connects veterans with organizations desperate for alignment, communication, and most importantly, trust. We also dig into why veterans are uniquely equipped to work in the tech sector. They're trained to see the whole mission, not just their own slice. They know how to drive clarity in chaos, how to align teams across silos, and how to solve problems with urgency, but also with care. Nate reminds us that in technology, speed without alignment is just drift. Veterans bring the perspective to check the vector, build relationships, and keep the team moving in the right direction. Nate holds a management degree from the U.S. Air Force Academy, an MBA from the University of Nebraska, and certifications spanning PMP, CSM, SPC, Lean Six Sigma, and DevOps. He also continues to serve as a reservist C-17 pilot with the 313th Airlift Squadron. Enjoy the conversation. Air Force lieutenant colonel at the time. Yeah. And he was like, dude, we should have gotten you. You shouldn't have gone to the Army. And I was like, well, what can you do about it? We all set? Yeah. Okay, thanks. And he was like, well, I'm going to talk to somebody. He was working at like DIA or something at the time. So next thing I know, he's talking to somebody, and that person actually reached out to my battalion. And said, we want this guy. And my colonel was pissed.
Oh, yeah.
So pissed. Yeah. And it was a matter of like, what did he call it? It wasn't so much a loyalty thing. It was just, you should have had a conversation with me before you know. Right. And I was like, I was a cadet. I was like, I didn't seriously think somebody was going to call, but they did. And he was pissed. But then we used to joke about it all the time because, a lot of my friends in the Air Force said, you would have had a better life, and I mean, it's 6 half dozen the other, right? There are definitely better bases. I will say that. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, when I used to go to Hawaii and I was assigned to Shafter, but would stay at a Pearl Harbor Hickam because I would call the Pearl Harbor BOQ officer quarters, and I would say this is Captain Curse.
Yes.
I wouldn't specify what branch. And they put me in with all the 06s in Pearl Harbor and Hickam. And it was great. And then I would, leave my room in the morning. I mean, you know how this is. You like exit the BOQ or whatever, and you're on the balcony, and all the guys are all leaving at the same time. And they're all 05s and 06s. And out walks this 03. And they're like, what? Or when you check in, they're like, you should have specified. I was like, I didn't know I needed to specify what branch of service.
Why didn't you ask?
So yeah, I got to enjoy Hickam and Pearl Harbor. Pretty nice.
Oh, so great.
Gigs. So have you spent time there?
Yeah, I was stationed there for 5 years.
Were you? Okay.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, all we did was fly. I was just talking about this yesterday. It was like it's peak Air Force.
Yeah.
Like I was a second assignment and like evaluator pilot.
Yeah.
So I was very senior in the squadron, and so I could pick my trips.
Mm-hmm.
I was super comfortable on the plane, and we just flew resupply missions around the Pacific, exercises with, Australia. We got to do Kiwi flag.
Mm-hmm.
That was, talk about like the best deal ever. Like, oh, hey, you're going to spend a week in New Zealand flying with the New Zealand Air Force, except they had 5 C-130s was their entire Air Force fleet, and they were all grounded.
Of course.
So basically they were like, yeah, we're going to do this training mission. You'll have one of the New Zealand Kiwi pilots in the in the back seat. That's we have 4 seats in the C-17.
Yeah.
And you're just going to fly. You're going to fly south to the south tip of the island, low level through the entire South Island of New Zealand, and they're just going to tell you where to go. I was like, this is the best thing ever. Yeah. He's like, yo, you got to climb now.
It's like a tour.
Hey, mate, look out.
Right. It's like a tour of New Zealand, but from a C-130.
Yeah, from a C-17.
Or C-17. Oh, wow.
And it was fun. He was like, oh, there's Mordor.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. From Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. Yeah, it was
absolutely.
a big thing at the time.
What years
was great.
What years were you at Hickam?
I got there in 9, left in 14.
Okay. Yeah.
So we might have crossed paths.
Yeah. But we probably would have crossed paths a little bit. I got out in 14. I became a veteran in 14. There was a series of years that I was basically reporting out of a headquarters in Hickam, in Shafter, but doing a lot of work, PACOM. In Hickam and Pearl Harbor. So the 2 generals I supported were all doing essentially all the signal communications for the Pacific Theater for U.S. Army Pacific. But we were always enjoying exercises with Air Force, with Marines,
all the other stuff.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
And when I started in the service in 2002, 3, I was actually based out of Fort Meade. So the headquarters was originally in Fort Meade, Maryland.
Yeah.
And they realized that it was what they called a multi-component, right? So you had reserve, you had guard, and you had active. And the spread of that sort of field space, battle space, was essentially from Guam to Fort Meade.
Yeah.
And they're like, time zones, anyone? So every time we did an exercise in Korea, Japan, Australia, wherever, it was such a behemoth to try and get. I mean, our TOC, our like main operations center, was in Fort Meade.
Right.
And the time zones were just ridiculous. So they finally said, hey, for the purposes of control and command, let's move the flag to Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And so they moved everybody out to Hawaii. And it was a pretty sweet deal for the people that got to go.
For sure.
That were willing to sort of upend their lives on the East Coast and move their families to Hawaii.
Yeah.
A lot of people made really good choices to do that.
Yes.
I was actually probably similar to you are now, and I'd love for you to talk about the balance of both the reserve and the civilian life. Sure. So I was a reserve officer at the time, and I think I was working at IBM at the time. And, there was the option to go on active duty orders and basically move out to Hawaii. But
Yeah.
I said it would be pretty disruptive for me. So I ended up supporting a lot of exercises, supporting a lot of the general officers as they got set up, and then spent a lot of time in Hawaii. So it was not bad. I used to fly from DC to LA, LA to Honolulu, and then I would do Honolulu, Chicago, DC. And on both sides of that flight, which you've probably done a few times, I was always running to catch the other flight. Like in Chicago, I was running to catch the flight to DC. In LA, I was running to catch the flight to Hawaii. So,
well, I mean, are we recording?
Yeah, we're all set.
Oh.
We're good to go.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. No, because I mean, like that, I think that piece is like being a reservist it's just, there's so much balancing.
Yes.
The stress of like trying to juggle two worlds plus a family. It becomes stressful and you really have to prioritize.
Yeah. So let's start off in terms of your journey in the service, as well as like the work you do in civilian and as a family man. Because to your point, the word balance is really capital B. Actually, all letters in that word are capital. I remember doing that, but I didn't have the family component.
Yeah.
But in many ways, it actually really complemented each other, right? The work that I did in uniform, the work that I did in civilian. I'm sure it's the same for you, especially because you're kind of an entrepreneur as well. So we'd love to have you sort of parlay that out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I can start with, I joined the Air Force right out of high school. I went to the Air Force Academy, then graduated in 2003, and then did pilot training in Mississippi. So that was fun. And then got stationed at McCord in Seattle, flying C-17. So I did that for about 4 years, met my wife there, and we got married, and we were like, hey, we should honeymoon in Hawaii. That was our thought. And then I got orders to Hawaii. So I was like, well, the Air Force paid for my honeymoon.
For 5 years. Yeah.
For 5 years, yeah. And then flew C-17s in Hawaii, which was, like I said, just a dream.
Yeah.
Lived on base, beaches right there.
I've been on that beach many times. I've barbecued on those beaches.
Yes. It's such a great place. It's very safe.
Very safe.
Like we have our own gated community.
Yeah.
It's our joke.
Yep.
And then decided to get out in 2014 of active duty and go into the reserves. So got into the reserves back at McCord. So we moved back here. And then when I got out, I never really wanted to be a pilot my entire life. Like I'm glad I did it and I love being a pilot, but I didn't have any desire to be an airline pilot.
Commercial pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a daughter at the time. We were pregnant with twins, and just the thought of being gone a lot made me just say, I'm going to try something different. So I got out in 2014, moved back here, and just decided to find a job. It's like, I'll get a job. It'll be easy, right? I have a degree. I was an officer. I have an MBA. Like, it should be no problem. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. People would ask, and I would say, I don't know. And they'd say, do you want to do this? And I'd say, yeah, sure. That sounds great.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it was.
Right.
And and so I ended up finally getting a job at Microsoft as a vendor. But it took a long time. It was a lot harder than I expected. And when I got in there, I realized like there was no secret sauce. There was no reason I shouldn't have been hired. In fact, like the military, especially as on the officer track, I felt really more prepared than my private sector peers.
Yeah.
Because it's a group of people trying to solve problems. And at a meta level, those are all the same.
Yes.
And so I did really well as a contractor there. And so I tried to get my buddies hired because I figured something out. I was like, hey, there's this untapped talent pool here. And I couldn't get any of my buddies hired. And so, long story short, I decided to start Form100 Consulting to basically do that, to match this untapped talent pool with what I think, and I still believe, is a desperate need for like team and program level leadership, especially in the technology space.
Yeah.
So that's what we do at Form100 Consulting. We bring in former military leaders, officers, senior NCOs, and put them embed them really with software development and technology organizations. So drive alignment, communication.
Yeah.
That's the focus.
When you were flying C-17s, did you ever envision you would be doing something like this? Like sitting in the pilot seat, doing what you were doing, which I definitely want to hear a little bit about, because like I'm a bit of a nervous flyer. Not terrible, but I'm always fascinated talking to people.
I'll keep that in mind when I'm telling you stories.
Yeah. But I also love talking to military flyers and military pilots because they keep it real. And, just a couple episodes ago, I had an F-15, fighter pilot on, and, his call sign is Sledge. And every once in a while, I will text Sledge and be like, hey, talk to me about turbulence. And this is a man who was a fighter pilot. I'll ask him, do you experience turbulence when you're in a fighter jet? Do you go on that? And he shared something with me recently. He was like, dude, just think of it this way. When you get cold suddenly, you shiver?
Mm-hmm.
He goes, that's exactly what's happening. Like that's turbulence, right? Like you're in a nice warm spot and a cold rush comes through and the plane just goes burr, right? Yeah. That's it. And I was like, okay, that's actually really helpful. That'll last me about 6 months, and then my mind will take over and I'll start doing the thing, because I'm a bit of a control freak, right? I'm the one who's wants to sort of be, wants to know from the pilot seat what is happening. And years ago, I used to listen to, you probably remember, United Airlines used to have, you could listen to Channel 9, which was the air traffic control from the plane. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I used to intentionally book flights on United just so I could listen to Channel 9, because I wanted to know that, like, hey, if we were going through this turbulence or storms or whatever, I wanted to hear from pilots. We're trying to work it out, right? We're talking to the ground. We're talking to other planes. I just wanted to know you're working on it, right? And now I'm at the point where I'm like, dude, trust them. Like,
yes.
They train this their whole life. They're paid very well. Their job is to make sure you're safe.
Right.
Just relax.
It's so hard.
But it's hard, right?
I mean, I have a very type A type. I always do that. And because the C-17 community, almost everyone goes into being an airline pilot.
Right.
And so sometimes I'll know people. I'll know the pilots.
Right.
That helps.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I always peek my head in the cockpit.
Do you? Okay. I always say hi. I always thank them on the way out.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're just busy doing their own thing. But I'll come back to this question about Form 100 in a minute. But what is it like to be a pilot you've probably been through a lot of really interesting scenarios in the seat, but then you're a passenger. Are you ever able to let go of control? Or are you sitting there thinking, like, why would you bank that much? What degree? Like, why are you going this way? I know we're supposed to be going south. Why are you going east? Like, does that all happen? Because that's what I go through. I literally pull out the compass on the iPhone and I'm like, dude, we're supposed to be going northwest.
Yeah.
And I'm looking out the window and I'm like, there's no weather. Why are we doing? So I'm just curious from your side.
I try not to think about it. Okay. I just totally check out.
Do you?
I mean, and I go, look, I think about it from like a macro perspective. There's so many flights going, every day you're flying point to point on well-known routes with very experienced air traffic controllers at, known airfields. For me, it's low risk.
Yeah.
So I check out.
So it's a relaxing time for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's good.
There was one time though, where I was sitting next to a lady who told me, like, hey, I'm really nervous. And so I told her, well, look, I'm a pilot in the Air Force. I'm still a pilot in the Air Force. And, and I'm like, everything's going to be fine. And kind of going through the calmest lady's mood. And we were flying into SeaTac here, and it was one of those very, very low minimums.
Yeah.
And so the C-17 can fly to what's called a Cat 2 ILS approach, which is really low mins. But the airliners have like a Cat 3, which is basically auto land. Like it can be socked in to where you can't even see the runway. And so it was one of those approaches. And I'm looking out the window, and she's next to me. And it was so low that I was like, where's the runway? And then the wheels hit before I even really saw the runway.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, crap. And she lost it. So
Words you don't
Because
want
I
to
gave
hear.
her all this trust, and then I was like, oh, and I was like, no, it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. We're fine. We're fine. We're good.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, it's. I always find it. There was a book that I read years ago. It started off as a. Editorial column, I think, in the Washington Post called "Ask the Pilot."
okay.
And people would submit questions that are the craziest questions, and they would answer them.
Sure.
And they ultimately took all of those submissions, turned it into a book. And it was really helpful for me because I was like, I'm not the only one, right? Who's thought this or wondered that, or what's the chime, or what are they saying,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm always curious about that. People that still fly, right? But fly for a very different purpose. Like I've got a friend who's an American Airlines pilot that just became a captain, so a four striper.
Right.
And I ask him all the craziest questions, and he loves it. He's like, I can't wait to come over for dinner to hear your latest round of insane questions. And it helps, So,
yeah, I mean, we take a lot of stuff for granted after you've flown for so long. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, no, I never had any thought when I was flying that I would be doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I started out, I got into the agile software development space. And so for a while, I was a Scrum Master, which is a real term. And I would go back to the reserves, and I had to fly missions and locals and training flights, and everyone's an airline pilot, and they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "I'm a Scrum Master." Like, is that what? So, yeah, it sounded a little weird,
but when they understand what it is, they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." I mean, because you think about how much of in the military we basically did what a Scrum Master does, but in a different realm or ecosystem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I when people ask, I say, look, we basically do mission planning and crew execution for technology teams.
Yeah.
I mean, and the parallels are so stark.
Yeah.
And so it really transfers really well. In fact, to geek out on this, one of the creators of Scrum, Jeff Sutherland, was a West Point graduate, and then he was a pilot in the Air Force. And a lot of how technology teams operate are based on just the foundational principles of how you would operate, your plane or how you would operate in the military.
Right. Like a standard operating order, and it's, the components of sort of 5 parts of that. I remember being early days consulting, and obviously I was in the service by then, but also reserve. And people used to have sort of a hard time breaking down an SOW, a statement of work, right?
Right.
And I was like, okay, guys, it's not that hard. And I would essentially take the common standard op order that we would take in the military and sort of put that lens on top of the statement of work, translate it. People would be like, oh, I get it. That's way better way to explain it. And I was like, okay, as long as we have the mission, the commander's intent, right? All that.
Yeah.
It'd be like, okay, that's great. So I ended up using the sort of 5 parts of an op order more often than I expected in IBM in consulting than I ever anticipated. It probably helped that I was eventually supporting clients and customers that were in the federal space and in the military space. So I was able to sort of like crosstalk quite a bit.
Yeah.
When you thought about starting your organization that you started, you had a very clear picture in your mind based on your own experience, which was, I came to Microsoft as a vendor.
Yep.
I had this talent. I thought, hey, they could use more of me or those like me.
Right.
And it was still challenging to get those folks in.
Yes.
And was it from that delta that you were like, I'm going to go create this?
Yeah. I mean, partly I did it because I was just, a little pissed almost.
Yeah. Understandably so.
Because there's just seeing that like seeing a gap that you can fix.
Yeah.
And like you were just saying, there's so many parallels where that skill set is so valuable.
Yeah.
And especially the more, dynamic and the more, the more technologically advanced something is, the more important the soft skills become. Yeah. The more important it is to make sure everyone's on the same page. Like,
we take that for granted.
Just aligned.
Yeah.
Like honestly, what are you building?
Mm-hmm.
And then don't then just wait and see what they say.
See what the answers are.
And maybe ask 3 people and see if the answers are somewhat the same.
Yeah.
And so just driving alignment and getting everyone on the same page solves a majority of your problems.
That's right.
But you can't just do it. You can't just, you have to have like gone through that experience of trial and error that we learn in the military of like, hey, this is going to work, this isn't going to work. And so that's really why I started it. I just said like, and I still at the core have this fundamental belief that this model is super valuable.
Yeah.
Because there's just an amazing talent pool coming out, and people that have had that leadership experience, that, I think, and there's a huge gap on the other end of just team and program level execution and leadership.
Yeah. I think it's pretty pervasive in technology, to be fair. When people think about from the outside in, the companies like Meta, Microsoft,
right,
Google, others, it all appears pretty advantageous, meaning like, wow, they must really have it going on. I mean, remember how many articles we read about the Google culture, right? And this is who they aspire to be, and this is why it's great to be there. And I mean, there was probably a decade or more of all those articles of like, this is the penultimate culture you want to aspire to be.
Right.
You and I have sort of been in those hallways, those boardrooms.
Yeah.
You don't have to look very far. You don't have to lift up the sheets too much to realize like there's a lot of chaos and a lack of culture that persists there.
Right.
And even still, these are the places that are moving faster than anyone. Like they're making decisions faster. They're forced to make decisions faster.
Right.
But without the like core component of really good talent and people who understand like alignment, and on the same page and requirements and all that, you sort of recreate the problem over and over and over again.
Yes.
Is that what you see? I mean, I'm a believer that we've been inside, we've been outside. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I believe you can almost invoke more change from the outside in than you can from the inside out. What's your experience been?
Yeah. I think the when I first got to Microsoft, I thought it was going to be a team of geniuses.
Yeah.
And
me too.
Now there are very smart people at Microsoft for sure. And, they have the luxury of hiring, really well. And, but it's still a group of people that are trying to solve problems in a very complex and dynamic environment.
Yeah.
And that's what the military is, right? A group of people trying to solve problems in a very complex and dynamic environment with a lot of things changing. And so, yeah, the culture of like, hey, it's okay to make decisions, right? The culture of taking care of your fellow, people first type of thing. Leaders care and feeding for your troops, those types of things, right? I was amazed at, that type of culture. I used to kind of get mad at first to say like, oh man, that's like, why would you do that? But then I realized like, oh, no one's ever told them.
No.
There's no real training of how to do, how to lead teams and how to lead groups of people. And so, yeah, I think that those cultures and there's kind of that lack of alignment and execution. Now, it works for them too, right? And so what we found is where a lot of the struggles is in the non-tech first companies.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. The places where, they haven't realized they're a software company yet, and they're still doing. They kind of know they need to do software differently, but they also can't do the way their business doesn't allow them to work in an agile way, maybe.
Right.
And so, how you can help these software programs actually get things done inside a huge bureaucracy that's throwing up roadblocks.
Yeah.
And so we really thrive in those environments because again, that's basically what the military is. You have to figure out how to get the mission done through a sea of regulations where there's no, you learn as a military officer, and or at least I did. I don't want to say for you, but there's so many regulations and rules, you can't follow them all. You have to know what they are so you can not follow them consciously, right? And say, hey, I'm not doing this on purpose, or I'm ignoring this on purpose, and this isn't important. And so that kind of skill set takes time. But if you want to actually deliver value, you have to get things done and out the door.
Right.
And so I think that culture is it's tough out there for organizations that haven't grown up in the software world.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of when I was working at Microsoft. One of the realizations I had that I wish I sort of indexed on before I started at Microsoft was I was going to call upon my experience and the culture of the Pentagon more in Microsoft than I ever was going to call upon my experience in consulting.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, that makes a lot of sense. But at the time, I was sort of believing the words that were being told to me, which is, we need your consultative mindset, and we need you to come in and help us think in sort of a services-oriented as opposed to product-oriented. And I did, right? I indexed on that. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And then what I realized was I was in another version of the Pentagon.
Yes.
The hierarchical, the hundreds of thousands of people. And to your point around how do we make decisions, it became very, very apparent very quickly that it's one thing to say we want this. It's another to allow it. And that's what I saw sort of firsthand at Microsoft. And it's not that people didn't want to change, but the system was set up in such a way that it was actually, to your point, you're encountering more barriers to progress. And I don't know if there were incentives either to sort of take on that change internally.
Right. I think that analogy is really good, right? Because there's obviously like some downsides to the Pentagon structure, right? I mean, it's overstructured.
Right.
But you were really clear on what org you were in, who you reported to, and what you were supposed to do.
Yep.
And I was never at the Pentagon for context, but what I've seen in these organizations is just a lack of alignment and awareness on where they fit.
Yeah.
And so you just by exposing that and getting alignment and clarity to what's actually going on, which allows communication to flow, then and that's where I go back to, like, I have more empathy for leaders in these scenarios, because they have to make decisions.
Right.
But they don't have all the right information because the teams aren't aligned. They're not communicating effectively. The processes are either there's no process and it's chaos, or there's this overbearing process that doesn't make sense, which results in chaos.
Right.
And people in leadership positions don't have the ability to make the right decisions.
Right.
So I have empathy for that because they're smart people. They're probably making the right decisions based on bad information.
Right. They want to do right, but they don't have everything availed to them in order to do so. Yeah,
and I think that bringing a little bit of just the clarity in the structure, one of the parallels I draw a lot with software development programs, especially the bigger organizations, and is like it's usually never just one or two teams that are working in a silo to deliver the new thing.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's an organizational wide, let's say you're implementing SAP or Salesforce or whatever, or building a new thing. It's going to involve multiple teams and multiple different organizations. And it's very, very similar to how we would operate like joint exercises.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you have totally different worlds, but you'd come together and it was super clear on charts, right? And one of the things we created is like, I started making, every time I go into a client, I make a program execution chart. That's what I call it. And it's basically just the org chart for a joint exercise.
Right. Same thing.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't care what org and who reports to who, but who's doing what.
Yeah.
Like what team are you on? And so a lot of the principles that we had when how we would work in joint operations, like I think the military is really good at that.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're across silos, you're pivoting all the time, and the communication flow is so vital to actually making that happen. A lot of these technology organizations don't have that infrastructure,
Right?
And it causes lots of waste. So waste.
It reminds, to your point around the joint exercises. I remember, ironically, it was a pandemic joint exercise that took place in probably the mid 2000s, and we flew to Kauai. And according to the exercise at the time, the Kauai was going to be a staging ground for people arriving to be treated in a global pandemic, right? I mean, just
the locals love that.
I know. And it was a joint exercise. And to your point, there were all branches of the military.
Yep.
So I was representing the Army specifically on the J6, so G6, J6. I was doing all the communications.
Yep.
There were representatives from FEMA, DOJ. There were representatives from all the agencies. They all flew in. And I remember very specifically my job, my very succinct job. I had a laptop on this arm and a laptop on that arm. This one was unclassified. This one's classified. I had a ream of Cat5 cable, Ethernet cable, and on both shoulders.
Yep.
And my job was to go in and make sure that every Ethernet port, classified and non-classified or secret and top secret, whatever, worked and had data flow.
Right.
All right. And set up at the time, these were teleconferences, right? We were using the IPs and we were using ISDN numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, people, I just want people to stop and think like the concept of just spinning up a Zoom or Teams is in one click now, like we take that for granted because we used to literally have to like patch in.
So hard.
You remember? And to get this set up so that every one of these representatives from different portions of the government could speak and give their brief and all this. Every day I walked in and I was like, please let it work. Please let it work. Because I mean, honestly, like if the coffee machine didn't work, it was my problem too. Anything that had power, electricity, data running through it, it was my responsibility. The toaster, the coffee machine, the Ethernet ports, whatever. And I remember very specifically, as you know, being on military bases, you can control what you can control.
Yeah.
But at some point, that military base has to go through a switch, which is ultimately provided by an internet service provider on the island.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can't control that. And we had a switch that was not working, but it was outside the wall, right? It was on the civilian side of Kauai.
Yeah.
And you have to make a decision. You have to make a choice. And so I called up, and you can imagine how this is. You call up the ISP provider in Kauai.
Sure.
I mean, Hawaii Telecom. I'm not even sure what they're called.
Yeah.
And it's island time.
Right.
And it's Kauai.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what's the urgency?
Yeah.
We'll be there when we get there. And yet you still had to bring them to a level of urgency and understanding of here's what's going on, but I can't tell you everything.
Right.
You know this part of the island that has all this activity, right? We were basically at Barking Sands naval base.
Yeah, I love Barking Sands.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. Some of the most beautiful beaches, man. Woo.
Yep.
And believe me, when I worked my tail off, there was probably about 2 hours at the end of the exercise where I just parked myself on that beach, and there's nothing between me and Okinawa. I was like, this is so beautiful. But you had to make it work. And I remember thinking, nobody taught me that. Like, nobody taught me to think, hey, you know what? You got to call the local provider. You somehow have to convince them with the level of urgency to come fix this thing. You probably know more about the switch than they do because you're a trained military officer on this technology, but you have to not let them know that because you might insult them.
Yes.
You have to make it seem like it was their idea, and you somehow have to make them seem like they want to do it right now.
Yes.
And that's not anything I learned in a course. That's not anything I learned in a conference. And to your point, that's what organizations need.
Right. And that's the kind of the bureaucracy piece of how do you go out, take ownership, and go actually find the people and build relationships with those people.
Right.
And I always, as aircraft commander, we would go and we would land at different bases for different cargo, and there'd be maybe a senior airman in charge of maintenance or what. And so it was always like, you have to be super nice,
Yes.
respectful,
Absolutely.
and motivating. Like you need, it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, and you learn that through trial and error.
You do.
Because I've seen it where they come in guns blazing, not really guns blazing, but they come in, and I need this right now and blah, blah, blah. And that person shuts it down.
That's right.
And it makes everything harder.
Yes.
And so when you get these huge organizations or big organizations with these cross-functional teams all trying, like the person, if having someone on your team that can go out and build those relationships, like the ROI on that is
huge.
so wild.
So huge.
And people don't think about it like that.
Yeah.
Because if I become buddies with the security team,
mm-hmm.
and then I understand what the security team needs, and then I can provide the security team their requirements in a way that I know our team, I build that relationship.
Yeah.
I can get them to do something maybe really quickly.
That's right.
As opposed to them being annoyed with me and saying, send it and we'll put it in our backlog. And then 3 weeks later, well, that's 3 weeks of maybe 3 teams totally blocked.
Right.
At, how much ahead per hour, and then how much opportunity cost for the delay in delivering stuff. And so, I think that it's an underappreciated skill set that I think is just going to continually be more important as more technology advances and things move faster.
Yeah.
Speeds the game.
When you think about placing people in opportunities, are you looking at it through that, obviously looking at technical skill set too, but you're also probably looking at it from the relationship standpoint. So are you able to, and I'm asking this question partly because I tried to do this for many years, and I think in some ecosystems I was successful, but where you're almost playing producer, right? Which is like, hey, I'm going to put this person in here because their skill set is going to really blend well with this particular leader. I'm going to put this person in here because they're a go-getter and they're going to get stuff done. Yeah, they might ruffle some feathers, but they're going to get some stuff done. And between the two, the pH balance will be okay. Do you always do that as someone who's kind of in this work?
Yeah. I mean, we're in the customer service industry, and we want to make sure that anyone we put in provides a higher ROI. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. I mean, like, if an organization's going to pay us to bring somebody in, like, we should be able to produce that level of value. And so it does depend on what they're looking for and what the problems are. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know. And sometimes when you find it, the problems they say that they have aren't the actual problems.
What's in the SOW is not actual.
Exactly. And so, but there is a from the other skill set, there are certain types of personalities that do better in this type of work. Things that I've found is, maybe I'm biased, but anyone in the aviation space thinks a lot like how software development teams operate. Yeah. Operators, people in the Army, infantry, those types of operations, and then execs. An executive officer skill set, I think, is really valuable in technology, and it's valuable because were you ever? I imagine you had some sort of executive experience.
I was a general's aide for 6 years.
Yep. Okay.
I was a secretary of general staff. So yeah,
not surprising at all. So the ability to think in your, in the general's head. Yes. And you're thinking strategically like you're in the seat, and you want to know what is the next thing, and I'm going to prep that so when they ask me, I've already got the answer. Correct. And so if let's say you're embedded on a team or a program in software development, and you're thinking like that, like you're seeing rocks below the water nobody sees.
That's right.
And you're able to pre-fix those things. And then by doing that, you build trust. And when you build trust, then you can have more influence. And when you have more influence, you can make things better. And this cycle just spins.
Yeah.
And like I said before, it's so hard to really quantify that.
Yeah. Well, I think the best stuff is hard to quantify, right? Like it's the gold, it's the gem, it's the gold.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of I had some amazing mentors and bosses, both on the military side and the consulting side when I was consulting for 2 decades. But there was a point where I had a boss who said to me, hey, you have a choice. You get to pick your people or you get to pick your projects. You don't get both. And she posed that question to me. And again, the negotiation started. I said, I will give you an answer, but with one caveat. You get to ask me that question next year, same time. So we revisit the question, same time next year, for as long as we're working together. And she agreed. And every time I chose the people over the projects.
Yep.
Do you think that way as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I oftentimes so when I'm out as an entrepreneur trying to sell to new clients, they're very in this experience-based mindset, which makes sense because they want someone that can come in and provide immediate value. And so as we had more experience, we've got more experience in those types of things, and that's made it easier. But ultimately, it's if you get the right person in the seat, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, what the work is.
Yeah,
what the challenge is.
Right. Because the challenge will change too. And what the person asking for thinks the challenge is usually not the actual root cause of the problem.
Yeah. Oftentimes projects on paper are not what they are. The minute it's like any plan. I mean, the minute you take your first step, right? You know this as an aviator. The minute you're like, okay, here's the log, great. But like the minute we pull back, like everything's changed.
Yeah. I don't know how many flight plans and days I spend planning. But we actually talk a lot about that in our company, which is like that effort of planning though
is integral.
Is so important.
Yeah.
Because you flex the relationships. You've thought through these problems so you can pivot a lot faster. And tightening those feedback loops is the game, especially when the writing of software development is no longer going to be the big constraint in the software world.
Yeah.
Then, how fast you get feedback, how aligned your teams are. Yeah. Because there's danger in that the other way. If you can move that fast, you can cause a lot of problems really fast by going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. The azimuth.
Vector and thrust type of stuff.
Yeah, totally. Obviously I'm an Army guy, not an Air Force guy, but I use that vector analogy a lot with people because it seems to resonate with them, even if they're not military, which is, you can be slightly variant, just a few degrees off.
Yeah.
But at the speed you're going, you end up in a completely different hemisphere.
Yes.
Before you realize it. And that's the part where in the technology space that we're in, I'm always trying to help people check your vector. What's your azimuth? Like, where are you?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And where are you going?
Do you know where you're going?
Yes.
Do you know the terrain? Like, if you look out the window, does it look like what you're expecting it to look like?
Exactly. Well, yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about, we would do some flights to some very, very remote islands, especially in the Pacific. And we plug it all into our computer. We have GPS, and then we also have, IRUs that would, help us with the navigation. And it was all blended. So you had a high level of confidence that you're going to get there. But then I try to remember that isn't a super, like, we didn't start flying with those.
No.
And people flew to these islands.
Right.
And the amount of energy it must have taken and the fear that you must have had, because if you're half a degree off flying to Wake Island or Kwajalein or, any of these places, you're not going to see it.
Right.
You're not going to hit a nav 8 if they have one even.
No.
And, and so they must have spent so much time and energy, star navigating, headings, checking the winds. But it allowed me, when I'm flying now, to just free up brain cells to focus on other things.
Right.
I can optimize other things. I can think about the mission.
Yeah.
So I think I've been feeling more and more like the parallels between what's happening in the AI world and the advancements in flying and autopilot. There's a lot of parallels there.
There are. I was going to talk, that's perfect. I wanted to talk to you about some of the AI stuff because you had mentioned, obviously, the software development, right? It's this world is being really impacted. Some might say upended. I don't know if it's entirely, there's truth on both sides.
Yeah.
But you see it from a staffing standpoint. How are you using it? Are your clients changing their patterns and behaviors of buying because of it? It's also nascent in a way, but not. So I'd love your thoughts on that.
I think what you're doing in this space, in the change management space, is, you're going to have really good insights into this. A lot of, like I said before, a lot of our clients are not in the tech first companies. They're technology organizations. So everyone's thinking about it. Everyone's talking about it. I would say that the majority of engineers are using it in some capacity now, not autonomously, right? And I've heard the whole spectrum from engineers, because I love talking to engineers.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not a software engineer, but I love actually, I just feel like I get them because they just want to get things done. And I love that perspective. And I've heard I haven't seen, an AI generate anything that I haven't had to completely fix.
Right.
To, I'm 10 times faster and I tell it what to do and then I go for a jog and come back and it's done.
Right.
And the whole spectrum in between. And so, I think that it's on everyone's mind. There's, I think, an expectation. I'd love to get your perspective on this, but sure. I think there's an expectation kind of from the C-suite, the CFO realm, where like budgets will only go down because of AI now.
Right. And
so like, hey, we want to invest in this, and they'll be like, why? You can AI it,
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that there's a fear of kind of over commoditizing, and I don't think that that's going to go away. I think you're still going to need software engineers that are going to be very and so it's really wild to think about. For me, the opportunity though is in, like, for me, if your program or your software development processes right now are stuck on delivering, AI is not going to help you.
No.
Like, if your processes aren't aligned, like, I think you're just going to create bigger bottlenecks.
Yeah.
I've been using the analogy of like a king toes. Increasing water flow through it doesn't help.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it could actually make it worse. So
could cause more danger in some cases. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think the sweet spot right now is getting your processes in a set place where you can capitalize on the advancements as they come out.
Yeah.
And then actually starting to go through like a lean process flow, theory of constraints thing, and try to knock down all those things that are actually blocking you with AI. I mean, and there's ways to do it. And so, but everyone's open. Everyone's thinking about it.
Do you think veterans and service members are more prone to jump in and try it? I mean, I've seen in pockets, because I think inevitably a lot of us are bias reaction.
Yeah.
And we're builders by nature. So we're trying these tools out personally. Do you get that sense as well? Like, are more candidates coming to you through you saying, hey, I've dabbled in this, I've tried it?
I mean, obviously the veteran community is a cross section. So some people are more prone to it than others. But I think especially on the operational side, anything we can any new thing that would come out that would give us an advantage and give us better and more capabilities, we're going to lean into.
Right.
And I think we've been trained that way constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I feel like the veteran community is more likely to take the risk of trying it.
Yeah.
That's I feel like that.
Yeah. I mean, I get that sense as well. And to your point around the business processes, I'll just reflect back on that. You're absolutely right. It's very similar to sort of the garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yes.
When we think about data. If you don't have business processes aligned or at least thought through or well positioned, it doesn't matter what you throw AI at. It's going to frustrate you. If you don't have the architecture and the piping and the data, the clean data, right, you're not going to get the results you want.
Yeah.
And it's not a magic wand.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are hoping it is going to be that, but it's kind of like the way we do laundry, right? Like, you still got to fold your laundry. Like, you can get the best machines ever that do the steaming and the dryer that doesn't really spin, and you can do all that stuff. But like, at the end of the day, like, you still got to fold your laundry.
Right.
It won't fold your laundry for you. And we're kind of at this stage where we're promising all of this agents, and I get it, agentic workforce and all that. I've read everything there is. I'll be on panels. I'll talk about it. But you still got to fold your laundry, like, down to the basics.
Yep.
And part of this, I think, is taking pride in those things that make us who we are, right? The last mile of this work, it may not be glorious, it may not be sexy, it may not be exciting, but it gets the job done.
Yeah.
And there's a part of this where I hope there's almost a second renaissance, which is like, hey, let's remember what is the essential work, not just like the exceptional, outstanding, on the edges kind of work.
Yeah. And I remember when I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, a general stood up. This is right when Predators were coming out and drones were the thing. He was like, he basically said, hey, you cadets, you're probably the last generation of pilots.
Flyers. Right.
I almost didn't go to pilot training because I was like, we're basically getting out of it. We're out of a job. And, and 25 years later, we're in a pilot shortage. Can't train enough people.
Right.
And I like that analogy, or I've been using that analogy a lot of like, when I'm flying, I'm not thinking about flying straight and level because the C-17 has autopilot.
It's built to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I have the brain cells to think about all the other things, all the mission impacts and how to communicate better. And so I feel like AI is going to be like that. And there's going to be, earlier versions of the C-17, the 141, would have a flight engineer. It would have a navigator.
Right.
We don't have them anymore.
Right.
So we're doing more with less. But we're still doing it.
Yeah.
And so autopilot allows me to free up brain cells to actually focus on the real things. Yeah. And I think that's how we're approaching AI usage with organizations.
Yeah.
It's like, look, we want to free up your time to focus in on solving the hard problems as opposed to, things that are just easy to do.
Yeah. I think the freeing up of the brain cells, the approaching things creatively,
right,
bringing that creativity back into some of the day-to-day is something that people really look forward to. But you have to get to the point where those business processes and everything, like, you can't run the stuff on auto,
right,
if there's nothing to run it through.
Yeah.
And that in a sense is what I caution people on a little bit. Is like, you have to have your house in order, for lack of a better term, right? It's like going from, in your world of everybody wants to go agile, and everybody wants, like, get me a Scrum Master. Okay, great. Do you have agile processes in place?
Yeah.
No, we do everything by waterfall, SDLC. Okay, well, getting a Scrum Master is not going to do anything but frustrate you and them. So like, let's figure out what you need to do, what you need to stop doing before you start doing. And all that has to take place. Throw AI on top of that. Sure, it can illuminate some things, like, take an AI and say, show me where I could streamline based on this, show me where I can streamline. Sure. But it's not going to do it for you.
Yep.
And if it attempts to, I'm going to caution people, like, you might want to put yourself back in the center for a little bit.
Right. And I think we're kind of going back to lean manufacturing.
Yep.
In a process standpoint. And I mean, that's what I encourage people to do. And that's what we're trying to do more is, we should really be mapping out the flow of how things work.
Yeah.
And that skill set is going to become more and more valuable. I mean, if you have an idea for a new feature that you want to release through your software program, then to actually releasing it, there is a series of steps.
I understand what that is.
And you should be able to map all those steps out. And then you can pick where you want to focus on AI optimization and then make real, tangible, I guess, deliberate choices on where you're gonna use it.
Yeah. One last question I'd love to ask you about is 4Block. So you got me involved in 4Block, and I've been loving the experience.
Awesome.
Like, absolutely loving the experience. I've been on a panel. I've been in breakout rooms. I've hosted at my workplace. I'm going to host again.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your involvement. Obviously, you give back in many ways, but it's just been in under a year, I've gotten so much value out of that relationship. And it's just been really, really beneficial to me. So tell me a little bit about it, or others that don't know about it. Would love to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we haven't talked much about change management. That's what the podcast is. But the transition out of the military is a huge change management exercise.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and there's so many programs now that it's almost overwhelming.
Yeah.
For transitioning veterans. So when I got out in 2014, I didn't know of any programs. I just flailed. And so the Hiring Our Heroes and the 4Block, Microsoft's MSSA program, for example, like Vets in Tech does a bunch of good stuff. But then there's a whole bunch of other ones that I'm not even aware of.
Right.
And I think 4Block is one of the really good ones because, they really focus on the mentoring. They focus on connecting, going out to all of these other businesses and actually getting in front of them and having exposure. So we stay plugged in to them. And then honestly, I mean, that it's part of our recruiting.
It's pipeline. Yeah.
Pipeline too.
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and so, because we don't post jobs.
Yeah.
We just network.
Right. Exactly.
And so we always have people that we're chatting with. And and I think that those programs are great. And I think the more at least from my perspective, the more I mentor and the more I'm helping people with their resumes, and I think all of that makes me better, right? Like there's almost a selfish aspect to it because it keeps me plugged in and I think critically about how things are changing and how the market's changing and the advice I give changes and.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been really, really valuable for that exact reason, right? Which is the time you put into it, it doesn't feel like it's draining, right? I feel like I got so much out of it as well because, to your point, you have a pulse in not only what people are looking for, but where they need help. And, we sometimes use this phrase like, I got your six, right? I sometimes tell people that. And civilians will say, what does that mean? Or I'll tell that to a friend. And it just means I got your back, right? Like, if we're not helping each other out, like, who's going to help us, right? There's so many of the systems and barriers that we bump into as veterans and as service members. And so it's been really great to be able to plug in like right away. Yeah. To your point around let's avoid the barriers, let's avoid the bureaucracy, and let's plug in right away. Like, what value can we bring and how can we help people? And just the conversations that have dovetailed from there have been really, really powerful. And it reminds me, stand in your purpose. I mean, you founded a company based on this notion of I'm standing in my purpose. You're helping people literally with job placement, but more importantly, buy their first house, have their first kids, graduate their kids, right? Like, these are not small things.
No. And, I guess what I always try to let people know is like your experience in the military is valuable and needed in the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
And from my perspective, like I'm not a veteran transition organization.
Right.
Like I'm not a charity.
Me neither.
Like we're trying to build a business that's valuable, and it's valuable because the skill set you have in the military is valuable.
Yeah.
Like the private sector needs that skill set,
Yeah.
and they're going to need it more and more because the technology across, it's so dynamic out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more people they have that can handle that type of scenarios and those types of situations, the better off they're going to be able to handle it. And it's going to be valuable.
Yeah.
Like there's real value in having veterans in your organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell people, where can they find out a little bit more about you, your company, follow some of the work you're doing?
Yeah. I spend most of my social media life on LinkedIn because I'm over 40. I think that's
closer to 50 over here, bud.
Don't look me up on TikTok. LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect with me. And then, you can find our website there. It's Form100Consulting.com.
Okay. Awesome. Anything we didn't cover that you wanted to share?
No, I appreciate you having me out. It's super fun.
Yeah. I didn't
know we were recording. I started talking.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's the best part about this,
Yeah.
right? Is like, it's just, to your point, it's almost like when you're approaching the runway and you're just like, oh, I guess we're here, right? It's free and clear. Like,
I was going to ask you, when are we going to start recording?
Clear for takeoff. Yeah, I know. We're already like 30 to 4,000 feet. We're good. No, and I do enjoy I do so much of this remote, but I really do enjoy starting to get back into the in-person. It just brings such an energy, and people can hear it. Like they'll hear it on the episode. They'll be like, oh, this was great, because you could tell you were together. It's
so much more valuable than just doing Teams and Zoom. And obviously you have to do some of that.
Yeah.
But having being in person is valuable.
Yeah, no, totally. And I appreciate you, moving your schedule around to accommodate this while you're up here. And I look forward to, you, me, and Donald hanging out for lunch when you get back up. And
let's do it.
It's a small world that's getting only smaller. So I appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet.